For more on these developments, I want to bring on conservative talk show host Rose Tennent. Rose, the most recent development regarding this whole Flynn investigation, and I should say the bigger Russia investigation altogether, is this new appointment of a new person to look into the unmasking done by former Obama-era officials. That seems to be the latest development that's taking place. What do you make of that?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, when you think about it, unmasking increased about what, 300% during the last few months of the Obama administration. That's something that absolutely needs to be looked into. And I'm so glad that Barr has appointed someone to investigate just that. And that includes the Michael Flynn situation as well and his unmasking. But, you talked earlier, too, about no evidence of Russian collusion. Behind closed doors and under oath, you had Comey and Yates and Brenner and the others say that there is no evidence of Russian collusion. Then they went on, some of them, to lie to the American people for 2 years, telling a completely different story, knowing what they had said behind closed doors and under oath. And it's just, what a whole mess this whole thing has become. But in many ways, and I'm so sorry because I know General Flynn. I've met him and had dinner with his wife and his family. And I really liked this man. And it was so sad. I was sad to see what he had to go through. But in many ways, too, a lot of these things are being exposed, and they certainly should be, and it's time.
And when it comes to unmasking, too, I want to be clear for our viewers, the practice of unmasking with itself is not necessarily unusual. It's this type of unmasking and the selective leaks that came as a result of it. So that being whether the phone call transcripts, the fact that there was an investigation into Michael Flynn, and then you mentioned what was said behind closed doors and what was being said in public as well. A lot of these Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee were seeing behind closed doors that there was no evidence of collusion, and then coming out on national TV and telling the American public something entirely different. So it's a big picture type thing, and this is just a mere peg in the overall scheme of it. So when we talk about this, too, we also want to talk about the case against Michael Flynn. And we see this judge right now, Judge Emmett Sullivan, and he's refusing to drop the case despite the DOJ telling him to do so, and despite there essentially being no prosecution to bring the charges against Michael Flynn. What do you make of that?
Yeah, because when the new documents came out and they were released and it indicated that Flynn was completely innocent, he and his lawyer, who I think is she is badass, they decided that they were not they wanted to drop the case, right? It's the weirdest thing. It's like when you go to court and you say, you know what, we're here to get married. You know what, we changed our mind. No, you can't. You got to do this. It's so very strange to me, but it's just, but not surprising. It's just been interesting to watch all of this unfold, hasn't it?
And you bring up Sidney Powell. That's the name of Michael Flynn's new lawyer. And I think it's very interesting. In fact, I would tell our viewers to go home and look at this timeline, because at the beginning of the case against Michael Flynn, it was a very different approach than the one that Sidney Powell and her colleagues took as soon as they took over this case. They weren't part of the plea deal with Mueller's and team. They weren't part of the kind of the exchanges going back and forth that were made with Mueller, that was made when Michael Flynn pleaded guilty initially. Then new information came to light. They withdrew that plea, and that's when they started changing the strategy. So I think that Sidney Powell was very pivotal in making that whole difference and now getting us to where we are today. And judging by where we are today, should this be something that Republicans hammer home when they're running in the House races, let alone President Trump when he's running in 2020?
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're starting to see some of them really get involved and be very verbal about it. And they absolutely must. And, I just want to go back to the unmasking. There is something, too, about the fact that it increased so greatly during those last few months, too, of the Obama administration. I think it's important to just kind of note that was extreme. It's seemingly extreme. So I'm glad that that's going to be looked into as well.
And Rose, I want to talk about this too, because a lot of conservatives have been traditionally, they're very supportive of law enforcement. And then this latest thing with Michael Flynn, they became a little bit weary of the FBI. Then we saw the lockdown orders taking place across the country, and their support for law enforcement has gone down a little bit. And does this play into something maybe a little bit bigger when it comes to conservatives? Is there less support because of these things that is taking place when it comes to law enforcement?
No, I don't think so. Not overall. I think that we can look and see that there are particular cases, yes, that cause concern. But overall, and I have to say, I live in a very blue state where it's been so oppressive here. It's not even funny. And law enforcement has actually been very supportive of small businesses who have been struggling. And we have a lot of people reporting businesses for perhaps selling things curbside. And I have to say, law enforcement has been very, very supportive. And I really appreciate them. Of course, we have some bad guys out there, but there are, for the most part, people are very supportive of law enforcement, at least here in Pennsylvania, and they've been working with us and supporting a lot of us.
And I think generally the American people are able to differentiate those making the decisions at the very top that they don't agree with, and then the very hardworking men and women who are doing the everyday hard tasks, whether it be law enforcement, protecting our communities, whether it be FBI agents, once again, protecting us from foreign threats and domestic threats as well. They do a very good job. And I think that the hesitation that people see with law enforcement right now is more so at the top than it is the field agents. And I think that's a good thing at the end of the day. But Rose Tennent, I really appreciate you coming on tonight, breaking down this issue for us. Thank you.